All right, now we are officially
You're a mul-
recording.
Ooh, you're a multitasker.
She is.
Unbelievable. Who knew? So this is the InStory show live stream that we're doing. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and today I'm here with Cathy Brett and Rona, who are both InStory members and InStory experts, and their videos are live on the InStory show. So if you want a more full expression and introduction and deep dive into what they both do and have to say, then go to instoryshow.com and you'll find their interviews there, or go to our Facebook group, the InStory World, in the Facebook world. So, so each morning at 9 a.m. I do a Facebook Live and I share just what I'm thinking about, what's coming up for me, what's in my world. And right now, while the InStory show is running, I thought, well, we're not just going to hear my thoughts. And so I'm going to have Cathy, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, say a few words, and I'll have Rona introduce herself and say a few words, and then we'll go back and forth. And so, Cathy, say a little bit about just who you are, what you do in the world, a little bit what the theme of what we discussed in the interview, and then what you're up to, how you're, like, we're in this whole world of the coronavirus right now. And a lot of the thing about doing something live in the moment is to be in the moment. So we're in this moment. Cathy's in Colorado, Rona's in Israel, I'm in Portland, Oregon. That's this coolness that we're experiencing right now. And even though, you know, I've been doing this now for many years, this online community with the InStory way, this year group we're all in, but now a lot of people are being pulled into this way of creating closeness and community. So, so Cathy, just tell us a little bit about what you do in the world and what you're doing in the world now.
Yeah. Spending a lot of time at home is what I'm doing now. But I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I work in the high-tech industry in people development or talent learning area. Teaching always seems to find me as I dabbled in other areas, marketing and product marketing and things like that. But it always seems to gravitate back to this. So kind of find myself learning. I'm a curious learner, perpetual learner at heart. And so the instance that we're in is providing lots of learning opportunity each and every day for us as we go through this. I work on a global team. So my world, like my work world, isn't really shaken up too much. Even when I do go in the office here, I'm still on Zoom meetings and I'm still talking to people all over the world, all different times. So that part isn't different than me. And that sometimes is interesting because I'll see the news and I'm like, but my world, like my work world, isn't that weird. It's just everything else outside of that is unsettled. And I think, you know, what's going on for me and obviously, you know, working for a corporation that's responsible for learning. And I really work in the innovation space. I'm all about, you know, how do you push that edge of creativity? How do you tap into, you know, some of that discomfort and think in new and different ways? You know, right now, we had a discussion with some folks yesterday of just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and just where are we as people right now, and just trying to get to what do I need to attend to. So at some point I don't even know, I want to say, get comfortable with the new norm, you know, get real with the unreal, so to speak. And so it's kind of switching, you know, instead of trying to push or force people right now, it's like finding, meeting people where they're at and helping them tap into some of those answers they already have, but open that up a little bit and let them self-select. Don't try to force anything right now.
Well, that was this whole theme of, like, you know, because you talked about ambiguity and that it, like, I think we're used to thinking that as something negative, but I want you to speak into that as that place where intuition comes from and the expansive nature. Like, I remember you saying that you love the gray area. Right. Well, our world is certainly in a gray area right now.
Yeah, you have lots of options right now, you know, of what you feel like you should or shouldn't do, but, you know, look internal. So navigating that ambiguity, and ambiguity I always define as there's more than one interpretation. So there is no, you know, right or wrong. We're typically, you know, praised with our behavior of getting a right answer. And you know, in my work world, that's kind of what I try to do, is push people out of that so they get bigger and get expansive. And it is that confidence to explore those edges. So, you know, it's, you know, as the glass half full or the glass half empty kind of concept here, right? Or is the flag blowing or is the wind blowing, you know? And so it's, you know, one day you might wake up and it's half empty, but the next day it's half full. But if you can just find some ways to tap into where you are and recognize that, and then it's, you know, small steps, I think, especially right now when there's so much, but we all have choices. And I even talk about my own inner wilderness, you know, and there's guides inside there, and you know, on that edge is when you're going to learn a lot. We're all going to learn a lot about ourselves here. And because it is not, nobody knows. So your choices really have to come from your intuition. And, you know, it may or may not be right. You can always pivot. You know, I think if anything, everything's temporary. So that's my thoughts.
You're like made for this kind of time period, Cathy.
Yeah, I do have bad days too, so I don't want to say like it's super easy either.
It's not about having good days or bad days. It's not that it's hard or easy. It's that each person has something unique to bring into this time period. And, you know, I talk a lot about how do you lead from your lane? Like, how do you lead with your unique perspective? And that you have a lot of unique perspectives and how to manage something that is uncertain and how to see the value in that and build our uncertainty muscles, so to speak. Right. And so I really love that. Really, really good. So, okay, Rona, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and then tell us a little bit about what you're thinking and what is coming out for you. Like, what's your wisdom coming to you in this wild time?
First, as you introduced us, I live in Israel. And I think for the last 6 years, I've been on a healing journey, because about 6 years ago, I got a facial dystonia that kind of made me blind. And so everything I do now is just healing and healing and healing. And so I had my life, it just stopped, and now I got a new life in front of me. And well, first of all, part of my healing journey is just to dive into so many different things and learn so many different things, and actually get acquainted with myself, which that was far away from something that something new to me. And today I do a lot of volunteering with everything that I acquired and I studied and I learned. I came from the world of arts, from trade shows and exhibitions, and I studied movement and puppetry and somatic work, and I work with children from deprived families, and I take all the tools that I have and I work with them. And I'm also an assistant in a course for trauma and somatic work and prenatal and birth trauma, which is very, very interesting. So it's kind of like our life is on hold, kind of, but it just moved to Zoom. It's not really on hold. And it's so amazing because, I mean, we're used to Zoom. I mean, InStory was always on Zoom. And because of my disability, I've been in therapy for like 5 years already on Zoom. And so my therapist, I said, oh, now it's easy for you, you know, you're acquainted with it. But it's so natural, you know, and everything it just changed a little because it's a swift. And it's just to think that the whole world is going through the same thing now. I don't know, it just brings me closer to everybody, because we're all experiencing the same shutdown, the same thing. We're all confined to our homes, and we're all going through the same emotional, physical, you know, everything. And it's like, that was once part of the other side of the world, and they had nothing to do with me, but now we have so much in common. And anyway, I'm going to go back to Cathy's interview, and I really liked the end of her interview when she talked about brainstorming. And I think, you know, first of all, I also love the gray area. There's so many colors in the gray area. Actually, when I went to art school, one of my teachers, it's like if we made a beautiful painting, you know, and you would critique us and you say, well, where are all the colors? I don't see the colors. And he used to live in the desert area. So he used to say, if you give me 50, 100 shades of brown, then I see all the colors. But all those colors do not mean that it's color. And so that's the gray area for me. The gray area has so many hues and tones, and it's so colorful, and all, you know, there's so much, it's so rich, but you have to be able and comfortable to find that gray area and be comfortable in that gray area. And when you get out of the black and white and you live in that gray area, your life expands. I mean, you have so many possibilities, and, you know, everything is possible. And I love that concept that, you know, there's no two ways. And everything, like Leslie was saying, everything has a yin and a yang, and there's no two ways. And I don't know, it just expands the possibility. But what Cathy was talking about, the brainstorming, I think this is a fabulous time to brainstorm. I also love brainstorming, and even families together, getting closer to brainstorm with yourself, with your family, with your friends, with Zoom. Now, so many people are getting together, and groups, and, you know, so many creative ideas might come out of this. Who knows, you know?
No,
So
it's interesting that you say that, Rona. I listened to a Jewish woman teacher from Israel, Yehudit Schneider, and she's a very well-known spiritual Jewish teacher. And she was looking back at texts from the Old Testament, from the Torah, and they had plagues that are in the biblical stories. And she was talking about how there were times when Moses would say to Aaron, take this censer with this incense and go and burn this incense to stop the plague. And I was like, what the heck? Like, what? And she was talking a little bit about it, and I have to listen again, but the reason I'm mentioning, even though it's still kind of a growing idea, is she said the incense, and she went into why, which I don't completely remember, represents something new, something fresh, something elevated. And she said it represents our creativity, and that it's and it's what you said, it's our creativity is the thing that holds the plague. And then she said it puts the scent of our souls out. And I was like, I don't know what that means exactly, but I really like that. I don't know, it feels like that's sort of what we do in our world in InStories. How do we take that scent of our soul, like the essence of who we are, and bring that out in the world with this creativity? So what you're saying about brainstorming and more creativity, like maybe that's, I don't know, part of what's being asked of us. I don't know. What do you think, Cathy? Then what do you think, Rona?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you both are saying, in that I'm amazed with how people are starting to show up when you take away all the clutter and the choices of consumerism and all those, you know, super privileged in the way I live here in Colorado. And, you know, you remove some of those things, and then you really get at kind of the heart that really matters to you. And I think for me, what's been so amazing just an InStory, meeting everyone, is we're from all over the world, never met physically, yet there's this connection. And even though Rona's creativity, I wish I was artistic, and maybe in my next life, that's what I want to be. But my art shows up in a different way. And we actually have very common through line with all of us. And when you know, can look at that and see that for the beauty that it is, it totally pulls you closer. And I think it's showing up in the way that people are stepping up and doing things that they never made time for. And it's the right thing to do. It's compassionate, it's humanity. So I think, yeah, I'm right there with Rona. And I know everybody in the world is not there yet because you're still in that survival mode. But, you know, once it gets to that point where it's like, okay, what's the opportunity? Who knows what can come out of this? It's uncharted waters. Everything's possible right now. And, you know, you have to be smart and you have to be intentional, and then think about those through lines. An interesting thing, I've moved into this neighborhood about a little bit over a year ago, and I've met a couple people, but now they're hosting a happy hour on Fridays down at the big corner down here at 3 p.m. They're just like, bring your drink. And so now I'm meeting neighbors that I otherwise wouldn't have met because we're all doing our thing, you know, every day. And so that's, you know, if you can see some beauty in this, that to me is just, actually super motivating, inspiring, because I was feeling a little bit disappointed in us as human beings, and how we were showing up.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that from in Israel, WhatsApp
Hmm.
is very, very popular. And I think it's less popular in the States, but here it's very popular. And like in my interview, I spoke a little about being alone in this world. And what I see happening now with the corona is WhatsApp has gone crazy. Families, like groups that were quiet and silent and nothing was happening. It's like they're going wild, and everybody's reaching out and everybody's together and nobody feels like he's alone in this. And just the humor that's out there now with I mean, everybody's enlightening everybody's making everybody, sending jokes and movies and I don't know, it's just everybody is reaching out. And so we're actually going through a plague, but I can see in my intimate family, there's groups that, they've never in their life been so active.
Right.
And it's amazing. I think it's amazing that, all of a sudden you feel like a clan, like everybody is together, all your friends, all your family, and it doesn't stop. It's like, and it's very encouraging. I think it's something really, really beautiful and special, is that before we just lived by ourselves in our own world and we didn't even reach out to each other. And now there's no end. And there's a constant hug, and there's a constant reassurance that, we're there, we're all there in this together. And that's quite amazing.
Yeah.
And I love the humor. So it may never stop. So serious.
Well, hey, Rona, I'm going to send you a toilet paper roll challenge that's going around with some of my friends to decorate your empty toilet paper rolls into puppets.
I used to actually do that for real.
Do send me.
I used to do that for real as a kindergarten preschool teacher. It's okay. I saw someone with a little picture of as if he was growing a plant that grew toilet paper.
Yeah.
And then of course Leslie has this like deep insight into it. We're all like healing our root chakras, so that's why there's all this stuff about toilet paper. Like, okay. And but I think this is the thing that's being asked of us, is how do you find the positive in your lane? Like, where is your point of adding something uplifting? Like, and you see people doing that. It's like what you said with Rona and your family, and you and your company, and each of us in our communities. Like, your community's gathering on the porch. And Miriam in our group said one woman comes onto her balcony at 8 o'clock in the night to sing, and everybody comes out to listen. And like, it is, so that's what made me think of this idea of creativity is this energetic healing force. And that we're seeing it. It's, and I think those of us who are connected into this creative realm online, like whether you're in my InStory group and doing that or somewhere else, we're seeing the confirmation of this kind of work, I think.
Right. But there's also, it's very difficult. There's lots of people that are losing their jobs and they're out of work, and
100%.
I see it all around me, and nobody knows where their income is going to come from tomorrow. And it's very, very scary. And I think, maybe even creative ideas will come out of that, because as I said, sometimes when you hit that rock bottom and you don't have a choice, things happen, things start moving that didn't move before. So it's, my heart goes to so many, and but it's something also new that we're going to have to deal with. It's not simple at all. It's not like like we said, there's not only a bright side to this. It's it's a very difficult times for
100%.
a lot of people.
Right, 100%. And that's sort of it's like, that's the two streams, is where can we make a difference for somebody? Like, where can you take an action and help somebody? How do you have compassion? Like, it's both that self-compassion and the outward compassion. And then how do we lift up the energy? And it's also what I'm talking about. How do you lead in your lane? Like, it depends where you can make a difference, because being miserable doesn't make somebody who's miserable better. right? So it doesn't work, but it's compassion and support and donations and whatever we can do. But it's important to figure out where can you do something, because otherwise I feel like we can get pulled into this terrible worry and despair. And it can just pull you down so hard. So it's this odd line, at least for me, between being conscious, like not shutting my consciousness off completely to what's happening, and then shifting to listening to something inspiring, so that we can kind of do that both directions, like to be conscious, aware, and to have compassion and help. And then what is this new thinking that's being asked of us?
Yeah, and this is when the grays come in, just to live to live in that in that gray span, really, because you think, and some of us think that like it's the end. What are we going to do? We can't, step up tomorrow. There's we're lost. But amazing things are going to happen to a lot of people,
right?
And the grays are very, very helpful right now.
Yeah.
And there's always two sides to that coin. Yep. So,
what else, Cathy?
No, this is a great conversation. I think it's interesting too, when to the point of people who now are unemployed or not, certainty. I have a lot of friends that are small business owners here, and we're all trying to do our part, but everybody doesn't know economically where this is going to really impact all of us in the end. But I think it's also being able to receive that help, so my encouragement too is people that are used to figuring it out on your own, back to Rona's comment about the connections that are being made, is when we find ourselves in that position of I'm going to do it myself, or I'll figure this out alone, is just opening the eyes that the world is going through it, that there are people and there's so many ways to connect with people. And sometimes it's nice to have that community, because you want somebody who feels what you feel to have that conversation. And that may or may not be in your family or your inner circle, but it might be some group that like InStory. For me, finding InStory was a really great connection of people that kind of feel like people like me, so to speak.
And I think like inviting people to believe that what you have to say matters. Like maybe we'll talk a little bit about the vision of InStory, because we're part of the InStory show right now, and you guys are in the InStory way. And part of my vision and mission is that we should feel that inner calling, that unique voice inside of each person, it has value. Because now I think more than ever, we're being asked to trust our unique perspective, our unique voice. So maybe share a little bit about how like maybe why you're in InStory and what difference it's making, so that we can, hold that space for people to have a bigger vision for themselves. And the theme of the InStory show this round is trust your intuition. So how are you doing that, Rona? How is it helping you? And Cathy, so we can like inspire everybody to really trust that inner calling, and even when it feels a little unnerving at first. Rona, you want to jump in, and then Cathy?
Okay. Trust your intuition. I have a cute story.
Good, a story.
My youngest daughter now is traveling in Peru. She's in Cusco, and there were like 1,000 Israelis there. And when the corona came out, Israel sent airplanes, El Al airplanes, to bring all the Israelis back to Israel. All the kids, there were like 1,000 kids on these planes. And my daughter says to me, she said, "It's not my time yet." And she said, "My whole life you told me, listen to my gut feeling." And she says to me, now it's not my gut, it's my whole body is telling, my intuition is telling me, do not go back on that plane, stay here. And I said, listen, if that's your intuition, then, I would love you to come home and everything. And I think, but I grant it. And I'm with you. And she's now there all by herself. I mean, there's hardly any tourists. There's only volunteers. There's no Israelis. She's there by herself. And she said, this is like the most important time of my life.
Oh.
I am learning so much from just dealing with being alone in this world by myself.
Wow.
And this is intuition, and this trust in your intuition. It was against all odds. There was so much pressure on her from everybody to come home.
Wow.
Not by us, but everybody is like, you're crazy. You can't stay here. And she says, no, I have an intuition, and this is my intuition.
Wow.
And I think it's something that like InStory gives me that I can pass on to other people is courage.
Mm.
Because that's what InStory gives me. InStory gives me courage. Every week we meet, and like I feel that the courage builds up to me, and it gives me the ability to do things that I never did before, like be on Facebook Live. That's something that was not even, I didn't even consider that one. But so many things in my life have changed by the courage that I have received from InStory. There's something in that group that just, it's because are concerned about one another. I know that there's a whole group of people out there that's with me. I know they'll back me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel their courage behind me. I feel them behind me, and it gives me courage to show up and to do things that I never thought of doing. And it's just like my daughter. It's like I pass on. This is what I think about generations. I'm passing on to her the courage that I got from InStory. And she's very courageous, which I think 6 months ago, we've been in a totally different situation. And she would have run back like everybody else.
Wow.
But this is something that InStory gave me, and that I'm passing on to the next generation, to all the people around me. And InStory for me is courage. I think it's for lots of people is different things, but that's what it is for me.
Wow.
That's what it's giving me. It's giving me a lot of courage to show myself in this world and to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thank you, Rona. That just lights up my heart.
Mine too.
Yeah. That's really great, Rona. And maybe to build on what she said, because I totally appreciate that comment around courage. I think for me, kind of my lanes are optimism and resiliency. Just kind of keep on going and keep moving forward. I don't look back too often, and kind of live in that world of all things are possible. And so for me, InStory has been, it's kind of that Maya Angelou's quote, and I won't get it correct, but it's something around, it's not matter what you do in the world, it's how you make people feel. Mm. And so back to Rona's comment about the weekly meetings, and when we're on there and you walk away and you feel heard, you feel appreciated, you feel respected. And I think that feeds that courage of saying, yes, this is important. Because I think for me, it's easy to tell other people how to do it, and they should be doing these things and pushing those things. And intuitively, I do that in a pretty closed off way. And so it's being able to spread and be seen. I love your words on that. So I think for me, that's what it's allowed to do, to have that bigger reach and to take those steps, without hesitation. And try to put it into words, because it makes sense in my head, but it doesn't always, I think, translate to people who aren't super comfortable with that gray area. It's sometimes I feel like I speak a foreign language. And so it's been helpful with the InStory group to be able to, communicate and then get those perspectives. Again, having representation from all kinds of people from all over the world is really helpful to take that into my perspective too, and appreciate meeting people where they're at.
Well, I just love what you're saying, and it's so much part of my vision also, why you're on this InStory Live with me now, why I have all of the InStory women come onto my international interview series, and just why I believe we have to show up. And it's true, it does take some courage. It takes courage to even step in to a vision, something visionary, and then that sense that you have the courage to believe what you say matters, and that you become able to show up with a deeper voice. For a lot of the women in InStory, I think it's not that you've never spoken in the world before. It's when you have that calling to speak more from your soul, that more authentic intuitively guided voice that hasn't been supported, I think, for many of us. And so, for everyone watching, trust this calling of your soul. Take this inspiration, this courage, and show up and share from your heart, from your soul. I think we need more than ever the voices, and maybe that was that metaphor of the incense that stops the plague. It just intrigued me so much. I don't know. It's just, there's a lot that's opening up on some expanded realms. So everybody, reach out to Rona, listen to her interview, reach out to Cathy, listen to hers, go into the InStory show, reach out to us to connect, to take that step forward. Clearly we're being called out, you know what I mean? Like the world is being called to step up into this higher vision, right? So be brave. As Rona said, you'll gain more courage if you're brave, and you'll find your voice, like Cathy said. All right, so just to finish up, I want to just take a moment that I've been trying to do in every one of these live streams, is to we're going to just take a short closed-eyed moment to bring just some healing into your being and out into the world. So just everybody close your eyes for a moment and just notice your breath. You know, in Hebrew, the word for breath and the word for soul are the same letters, neshima and neshama. So feel that connection of your breath coming in and out that really allows you to connect to your soul. And feel a sense of breathing yourself bigger than your physical self. Feel that expanded sense of your presence, of your soul. And then allow your awareness to shift to that flow from above and feel your connection to God, Source, the universe, and feel that pure light from above coming down to the top of your head, filling your whole body, your whole being with light, love, healing, blessing, guidance, clarity, down into the earth, grounding you in the earth, and breathe up that solid, rooted, healing energy of the earth into the center of your being. One more time, feel that light from above coming down, and really feel now, with a lot of intention, a very strong healing light filled with love, healing, blessing, guidance, clarity coming through your whole body, your whole being, grounding you in the earth and breathing up healing from the earth into the center of your being. And now, as you feel in this state that I call connected flow, allow yourself to expand and send this same healing light horizontally, so to speak, to the people in your closest community, the people in your home with you. See them receiving this healing light and love. And then begin to expand that light to surround the people closest to you in your community, in your work, in your social communities, and then begin to expand out horizontally to everyone in the country where you live, and then eventually let that expand out, so to speak, horizontally over our whole world. And then I want you to imagine, like, as if you're shifting your attention up into the sky, and I liked the image of like almost like a cloud of light, a cloud of love, of healing over the entire planet, and raining down healing light, as if there's light coming down that fills everybody with this healing light, and almost as if you can imagine in any way you want, almost as if there's this light that's transmuting the virus into healing. I heard someone say, what if the virus heals you? And so just in whatever way comes to, imagine that our entire planet has this other light being rained down. Like, if this virus could come into our planet, so can healing. Like, anything is possible. So allow yourself to trust your own imagination, your own imagery, and feel that we are collectively sending this healing into every human on our planet, and that it's healing us. And maybe it's healing us in such profound ways beyond what we knew, which is what we talked about, this transformation. And then bring your awareness back to yourself. feel that you have this light in you and that you can shine your light through your words, through your communications, through your intention, through what you create, and trust yourself. Trust your inner guidance, your intuition, trust that soul calling, and believe and know that what you have to say has value. Your story matters, and that you have light and love and a unique story to bring in the world that no one else has. And you are invited to share your light, your story, your soul vision with the world. So take a breath, feel that you are surrounded in this healing light, and then bring your awareness back into the moment and open your eyes and come on back.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
And so, Rona and Cathy, thank you so much
Yeah, thank you.
for being who you are, being that light in the world. It is truly a blessing. So thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. And as I say in farewell, everybody remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.